Hi, clickbait. 10 obscure YouTube channels for those in search of their next obsession. Here they are, here's all 10, no spoiler warning, links in the description. Check them out. It's my hope that you find something new and especially something intellectually stimulating. Something to make you curious. Videos of substance. There is on this site an ever-increasing glut of low-effort, long-form garbage, spurned by content farms and ad revenue. But these channels are the resistance. Let's check them out. Number 10. Shetani's Lair. Shetani is a Japanese to English linguist and native speaker of Russian. Her videos investigate all sorts of intrigues, slippages, missed and hidden meanings which unfurl in the process of video game localization, mainly looking at FromSoft games, Sekiro, Soulsborne, Elden Ring. If you're a fan of Elden Ring, I definitely recommend her video on Ranni's ending.
In Rom's name, Hakuchi is a curious word that contains the kanji chi, meaning stupid, foolish. The word as a whole denotes idiocy, mental retardation, and generally points at some kind of cognitive impairment. English localization chose vacuous when the more accurate word would be idiotic. Vacuous does have the meaning of to demonstrate the lack of intelligence though, so I guess it fits in this sense. Kumo means spider. It consists of spider and spider. At the center of this name is some kind of idiocy, retardation, possibly because Rome was previously a human who became kin. I feel like idiotic or half-witted spider could be a good choice. Anyway, I feel like the localizations of this name could go only downhill from English. In Russian we have something like lazy spider, which is totally not true.
Number 9. Chong Art. Chong is a claywork sculptor building and sometimes painting beautiful models. His subjects come from popular culture, video games, fantasy, and his own imagination. His talent is immense and totally disproportionate to his view count. He shoots multicam and his edits are fast, and if you're interested in sculpture's form, he has so much to teach you. Personally, maybe a nitpick, but when people are talking to screen, I cannot stand jump cuts. They make me sort of nauseous, and he uses them a lot. Little criticism. This probably won't be a problem for most people.
Hey guys, my name is Art, and in this video I resculpt a 3-year-old character and take the project scope way too far again. This is a sculpture that I made about 3 years ago. It was about 3 months after I started sculpting. I made it as a part of a class with the great Simon Lee. I quite like it actually. For all the technical flaws in the piece, something about the design stuck with me. I like the simplicity of the design and how she's just nothing but flames and a single big talon, and I just really like the personality in the piece. I've already primed the model using lacquer spray, so we can go ahead and jump right in, starting with white followed by magenta. Yeah, see, when I added the little poor unfortunate souls to the flames, the idea occurred to me that I should make these not red. And I'll tell you a secret, I actually meant for these flames to go from white to magenta, then transition to a purple lilac color. In fact, the name that I had for this character was Queen of the Lilac Flames. But when I started spraying with magenta, I thought it looked fantastic, so I just went with it. She can be the queen of some other kind of flower that's pink. And maybe the flowery flames on her body makes more sense to you now.
Number 8. David M. Green. David M. Green is a comedian and TV commentator, fiercely Australian, and host of the online show VHS Review, a project reminiscent of Red Letter Media, sleuthing through forgotten relics of trash television and daytime entertainment. Because so many of his VHS tapes come from Adelaide, where he used to live, and where I live, there's this weird nostalgic connection where I feel like all of his videos get deep into my brain. Like, some of the ads and clips that he plays are so deeply entrenched in my psyche that they unlock something. It's very unusual, and it will only make sense, I guess, to Australians mostly.
Hello and welcome to another VHS review, and following on from episode 31, today we're looking at Futurama Tape 2, which I recorded off Adelaide's Channel 7 over the first few months of 2003. It was the first time I'd seen any of these Season 3 episodes, including Luck of the Fryish, my absolute favourite. Take a look at this ad for Flight Centre.
Some people believe airfares are cheaper on the internet. At Flight Centre, we guarantee to beat any internet price. Save $5 on any flight within Australia or New Zealand and $20 on other international flights. Only in Flight Centre stores.
Call 131600. That's 131600.
Cheaper than the internet.
I know those words, but that sign makes no sense.
By the way, this is Flight Centre today. Here's an ad with a strange, long-running gimmick I've never really understood.
Save? I'll show you how to save on Panasonic at Keith Bowden Electrical. Zap in for a new Panasonic inverter microwave oven with true variable power for even food temperature throughout and one-touch sensor cooking. A must for your kitchen. Of course, we've left the best to last. Keith Bowden's prices only...
At Keith Bowden Electrical, we never advertise price.
You keep coming back. Keep coming back.
Oh, you'll keep coming back, all right? Because it's the only way to find out how much the products cost. I don't get it. We never advertise price. How is that a good thing? What, you take pride in inconveniencing everyone by making them schlep into Keith Bowden's or at least phone in to find out how much the dishwashers are? You're just being a c***. It's like if Coles boasted, we never have any parking spots, or Harvey Norman, go fuck yourself.
Number 7. Questing Beast. Questing Beast is by trade a dungeon master, RPG writer, and role player. He's deeply invested in the OSR, D&D's old school renaissance, and he reviews and reveals modules and books I would never otherwise find. Ben has prompted many of my tabletop fantasy purchases. Old School Essentials, The Book of Gob, Morkborg, Oz, Neverland, Super Blood Harvest, Frontier Scum, Veins of the Earth, and even Hex Kit. That's a lot of influence. His book Knave was recently the #1 trending game on Kickstarter. If you're a role player, this is the #1 channel for you. I've DM'd for over 10 years, mostly homebrew content, and I've learned so much from Questing Beast.
Today we're taking a look at the Book of Gob. This is a new spell book or grimoire. It's full of a whole bunch of new spells for Dungeons & Dragons or D&D-like games, especially things in the old school Renaissance. It is put out by Lost Pages. Now, Lost Pages is my favorite producer of spell books. They put out Wonder and Wickedness several years ago, well, many years ago. It's one of the first books that I reviewed on this channel. And that is my favorite spell book. And since then, they've done a couple more in a very similar vein. And this fits right into that. Here's a really terrified one, The Tide of Turmoil. It's a swirling chaos of a catastrophic event that is yet to end. An unresolved collective trauma festering, terror unable to be left behind. It just sweeps over a landscape, destroying everything around it. You can't fight it exactly. You'd have to either try and run from it or try and build defenses that could absorb it or channel it in some way. I really love the illustrations throughout this whole book. It's mostly done by, let's see, Charlie Ferguson Avery, Enoch Duncan, Jonathan Newell. I love Jonathan Newell's work. He did some other stuff with Lost Pages, the giant whale setting.
Number 6. AmberLimShin. AmberLimShin, aka the Talking Poo, is a digital illustrator and solo video game developer. She released her senior project earlier this year on Steam, a narrative game called The Secret of Dorian Pink. It's free and you should check it out, especially if you're a fan of Wild. I discovered Amber about a year ago when I was making my own narrative and dialogue-driven game in Godot, a project I've since destroyed. If you're an early career computer science major or digital artist or would-be game developer, I implore you to check out the Talking Poo's tutorials, as well as her reflections on the mistakes and successes she has encountered in solo game deving. She's so sweet. She's working actively on building her community, and she's definitely a serious inspiration behind the making of this video.
But whatever, today I am going to help you wrap your head around the logic or concept or structure of a JSON dialog system. I will share snippets of code to explain the concept, but this won't be a step-by-step technical tutorial. There are a lot of other tutorials already, the ones I personally find helpful. I will link in the description below. My video is more intended to sort of help fill the gaps between not knowing how to make a dialog system in Godot and tutorials that strain your brain too much. Making your first dialog system probably takes days and many hours, but stay determined. If you'd rather not make one, please go check out Emilio's Dialogic, an awesome Godot dialogue system plugin, which will probably fulfill most of your dialogue needs. In my case, my Door and Pink game is more narrative heavy, so it's better to code something from scratch that I can freely manipulate throughout the game.
Number 5. Georg Rockall-Schmidt. Georg Rockall-Schmidt is a man. He is a British man. In making this list, he's actually a little too popular in terms of subscriber count, but he covers such a broad range of topics, and some of what I consider his best videos are severely underviewed. Georg is a filmmaker and critic, and his independent journalism covers popular culture, internet culture, crime, history, philosophy, politics. I'm a super sucker for his dry British wit, and throughout the years he's made me laugh literally dozens and dozens of times. Beyond this, he's taught me a lot, and he even introduced me to films which have since become my all-time favourites. Come and See, About Schmidt, The Seventh Continent, Muriel's Wedding, 1 Hour Photo, and Martin, just to name a few. Of his movie criticism, I definitely recommend When Movie Twists Fail, What Makes a Good Sequel, How Test Screenings Change Films, and What Makes a Memorable Movie Death. I'd also strongly recommend his videos on true love, dating apps, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, Erica Girardi, Teflon, influencers, and how to end a TV series.
So, let's get going. All of the movie news in its entirety. Number 1. Oh no, wait, the intro.
There's a spider! Spider! Spider!
As you know, the Mario film... Mario? Right, Fabio, just edit that. Yep. The Mario film is almost universally hailed as the best film ever made, certainly my favourite film. And no wonder, just some of the writing team include chatbot iterations of Stanley Kubrick, Marie Curie, William Sherman, and Darius II. Directing the film was the United Nations contingent, guided by Mother Sphere. Mario is undoubtedly the most brilliant thing I have ever seen, and deserves all of the $17 trillion it has earned. In case you haven't seen it, you disgusting cretin, Mario presents one of the greatest bait and switches in cinema history. And I mean all of cinema. I've seen all of the cinema. I'm very clever. Initially set in a cutesy and compelling in its own right CGI fantasy land, Mario at first presents itself as a basic bitch off-the-shelf Nintendo merch frenzy. But in fact, Nintendo have donated all their profits to Children of Manchuria, and, having accomplished their goals in artistic excellence, committed themselves to the next life. Wow! What a film! It really made me think and appreciate that I live in America. Quite possibly not just a cinema masterpiece, but a masterpiece of human endeavour.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I should include this, but a capstone. I do want to mention one criticism of George which has bugged me for years, and I don't know if this is some sort of serious avant-garde irony and I'm on the outside, but it really seems he misunderstood the entire point of White Chicks. Mind you, this video was like 6 years old, but he goes on for 13 minutes about how the black protagonist's disguises don't look anything like the white women they're impersonating. Missing, it would seem, the central joke of the entire film, perhaps the entire point of the entire film. Anyway, that video always just stood out to me. Love you, George. Intermission, break time, something else. Before we get onto the top 4, I want to make some honourable mentions. Here they are really fast. Either they didn't quite fit the criteria, or their subscriber count was too high, or whatever. Pony Smasher, Leaf by Leaf, Plastic Pills, Julian O'Shea, DAS Bookbinding, Orpheus, and my brother's Let's Play channel and my father's history channel. I guess we're now a family of YouTubers. Number 4. Premodernist. Premodernist is a scholar and historian. He's taught at university, I think at the undergraduate level, for about 10 years, and he has a doctorate in history. His academic specialization is on medieval Middle Eastern history, but his channel's topics span the globe, interrogating turning points in history and all of that delicious mythical apocrypha. Revisiting Premodernist's earlier content, I was super excited to see that his video on George Washington and the Electoral College went viral, reaching at the time of recording about 1.5 million views. Incredible. I wasn't sure to say this, but I will. The video style will be for some a bit dry, but I do have to stress that deep, thoughtful analysis is always, in one way or another, cumbersome. In my opinion, Dry and precise beats out pithy and shallow.
Genghis Khan launched his invasion of Central Asia. So Changchun ended up having to travel all the way from Shandong province, all the way up through what is now Beijing, up into Mongolia, across Mongolia, and then down through Central Asia, all the way to what is now Afghanistan, where Genghis Khan was camped. Changchun was accompanied by a number of other monks. One of them was named Li Zhichang, and he wrote an account of this journey, which has passed down to us in the present. It was incorporated as part of the Taoist canon, and then it was translated into European languages in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, including English. There are three passages in particular that I want to talk about. The first one is as they're journeying to go and see Genghis Khan, they pass a city called Balkh. The people of Balkh thought that it would be a good idea to rebel from Mongol rule. So Genghis Khan came back in 1222 and killed every man, woman, and child in the city. Now, just a few weeks later, Changchun and his fellow monks passed by that area on the way to see Genghis Khan. So the account says, "We followed the river upstream and then went southeast for 30 li. Lack of water now compelled us to travel by night. We passed the great city of Balkh. Its inhabitants had recently rebelled against the Khan and been removed, but we could still hear dogs barking in its streets." Now, when Li says had been removed, he's using a euphemism. They were all killed. But I find this account really eerie. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think you know what I mean. Like they were traveling along, they passed by this big city. It was a pretty big city at the time. And there were no people. It was completely depopulated.
Number 3. Boulder Punch. Boulder Punch is a game critic in the style of Joseph Anderson and Mandalore, looking at survival horror games with the occasional foray into other genres. I discovered Boulder Punch via his most popular video, an hour-long retrospective of RE7, which has done the viral rounds, amassing over 1.8 million views at time of recording. He's a pretty astute writer, and his consistency in style and form, alongside his attention to value for money and the consumer experience, actually reminds me of the late great Cynical Brit. I'm sad now.
Rule of Rose was developed by Japanese developer Punchline. They had just one title prior to Rule of Rose, that being Tulip for the PlayStation 2. A game in which you improve your reputation around town as a newcomer and then kiss them. Rule of Rose would be a much more different, darker title. And this was a very controversial title at release. Not in Japan, it released in January 2006. It's when it made its way out west for release later in the year that the controversy arose. One politician said Rule of Rose contained obscene cruelty and brutality to children. I've covered this in the past in my videos on the Manhunt series by Rockstar, which were under heavy fire during this time frame. Rule of Rose didn't do huge sales numbers, and like another PS2 survival horror title I've covered in the past, Haunting Ground, you have to pay a fair chunk of change for a physical copy. To note, I am playing this on an emulator. Onion Games, a Japanese-based indie developer, have expressed interest in making a remaster of Rule of Rose back in 2021. They have done a few remasters, and some of their staff did work on Rule of Rose. Whether this will come to light remains to be seen. To also note, with me using an emulator here, I am playing this upscaled with a widescreen patch. The game looks like a later era PS2 title. In-game graphics look just fine, although there's nothing much to write home about there. It's the FMVs that are quite noteworthy. They're well directed, acted out, with plenty of details and love put into them. They were done by Shirogumi, who are a Japanese video effects company that are frequently outsourced for developing cutscenes. I didn't realize how much work they've done in the past in video games.
Number 2. PaperBird! PaperBird! PaperBird is the most intelligent YouTuber I have ever encountered. I am a novelist and voracious reader of fiction, and it is because of these things that PaperBird has influenced my life more than any other YouTuber. His book recommendations and his style of thought and analysis again and again alter the crooked path that is my life, my art, my hobbies, and my joys. If you are serious about serious literature, or if you are neurotic enough to be deeply troubled by the unending ways we read, PaperBird is the one for you. The Burb introduced me to so many incredible writers: Harold Brodke, Edward Levy, Dino Buzzati, Joseph McElroy, Claire Louise Bennett, Marilyn Robertson, Jon Fosse, Tao Lin, William T. Vollman. My God, Burb, what have you done to me? As an aside, and this is absolutely true, I was once dating this avant-garde artist, and we were going to read John Updike's Couples together as a buddy read, and I remember showing her PaperBird's video on this novel, finally excited to share it with someone. And I remember this so profoundly. She thought I was trolling her, like PaperBird was doing some sort of April Fool's pseudo-intellectual rant. What I think this shows is you get it, or you don't get it, you don't get it. He's not for everyone, but by God is he for me. He is the only person I believe on this list who possesses genuine genius. I love you, Bird.
If you've never read him, I'd actually recommend reading his last novel first as kind of like an appetizer, and then going through his 2 short story collections, some essays in this collection, especially the ones about Woody Allen, and this recollection about the poet Frank O'Hara, and then reading The Runaway Soul, and then his final memoir about his dying. Harold Brodke was born in 1930 and adopted at the age of 2 by some relatives who tried really hard to lead this attractive middle-class life, but they were super dysfunctional underneath, and he became sort of like this receptacle of all that dysfunction. He was just surrounded by death at an early age. Different novels and then kind of swivel back and forth between them. Then you continue reading the book by not reading it as it lingers inside of you and accompanies you through your own journey through time, which is like this slow march that can be measured up once in a while by looking at this eternal structure that's witnessing the souls of others grow up. You age and corrode over time.
You have 2 kids together. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing
And what can you do with these desires that are trapped inside of a body that constantly fails you? Just escape into these daydream worlds to obliterate yourself. He wrote about in The Depressed Person or in Infinite Jest when he's talking about suicide, just how at the cellular level it was just agony for him sometimes. It really shouldn't have come to us as any kind of shock when almost 10 years ago Wallace ceased to exist, and but it was a shock, and it was cataclysmic. It was a way for her to tame this raging animal inside. One thing this author says about the German language, which I found interesting, was how the words, even if they might sound like gravel getting poured down your ear canal, to her they seemed like jewels. And that gave me this idea of sifting through the river here and extracting only the brightest, most colorful words. Those would be the ones with the letters A, L, and E in them, which makes sense in a way because the river that she's walking next to throughout this book is the River Lee. So we could float a theory about river to where the implied absence that's in the center of this book, which is so profound that you never get a good sense of what that absence actually is, might actually be about a lost son. And if that were the case, it would then follow that there is an alternate story somewhere that exists that is about a lost mother, the narrator being a child who's also walking along the banks of a river, searching and superimposing that image of the lost mother onto pretty much anyone, just girls with certain letters in their names, or all the teachers in school, just random women from magazines. A mother who you'd witness firsthand go completely insane, literally talking to angels as they're wheeling her out on a stretcher.
Stand up. Yeah. Hi, I'm Fergie Vicious. To a bunch of bitches, man, I'm Fergie Licious. Battle with a bunch of little trap villains. Turned it up to your ass on the ceiling. Fuck your opinion, nigga, I been killing. Hip and white bitch on the penicillin. Getting all the bad bitches I been feeling. The nigga trapping, yeah, I'm drug dealing. Hit her with that crack pipe, get her lifted. Take a little sip on my drip. Fuck a little trail bitch to my dick lick. I love the way you lick on my dick tip. Riding in a Bentley, you in a Civic. Fucking main broad till she on my friend dick. 4, 5, 6, yeah, my niggas tripping. Shout out to the max and my niggas crippin'. ASAP Q, yeah, my nigga crippin'. Money,
Number 1. Polyblank. Polyblank takes the number 1 spot on the basis of his accessibility. Polyblank is a funny as hell art critic. His taste is impeccable, and those he spurns deserve it. He appears to be fairly new to the scene. His first video came out about 6 months ago, and at the time of recording, he's only posted 5, but all of them hit. I discovered him just a couple days ago, and I've already watched every video twice. He no doubt played a major role in the making of this list. Check him out.
I'm talking about contemporary works. What gets critiqued most is not the beauty of the painting or the emotional response it gets, but instead, and this is very interesting, how much effort was put into it. To keep it short, modern works are seen as low effort and easy to produce. Now, if we were to gauge art based on effort, then the greatest painters ever would be the pointillists, and the greatest artists would most likely just be those performance artists who ruined their lives for art, like Do-Ching Hsieh, who punched a clock and took a photo every hour for a whole year, meaning he never slept and he never left the studio for more than an hour. In an interview after the work was finished, Hsieh said the mental anguish was comparable to living in the Balkans for a day. He even has a book with North Korean art. I mean, it's kinda expensive and would push this video back by like a week. Any sensible person wouldn't buy the book. I bought the book.
An artistic work insensitive to party policy will lose its viability. Kim Jong-un.
Printed in North Korea is an incredible visual gallery of hundreds of works. There is no way for me to show every lino cut, but I have curated my small collection of top 5 favorites. This one by J1 has a unique contrast between foreground and background. Usually, lines of factories with smoke coming out of them is seen as a symbol of dystopia, while a group of workers on bikes on luscious green grass seems to indicate a utopic society. You will see a lot more of this perfect worker class vision in North Korean art. Marching on the First Morning by Park Yong-il. A clear snow scene in only 3 colors without counting the red. This is devilishly deceiving in its simplicity, and I wager most traditional artists of today would have a hard time coming even close to this one. Maybe a mangaka specializing in cityscapes could do it. Train Whistle of the Northern Part by Han Sung-won. I think you have started to recognize a certain aesthetic at this point. Pastel colors with black cell shading. And to think these are traditionally painted just makes them all the more impressive. Lino cuts or wood blocks take a gigantic amount of effort to get right, and these artists seem to always get it right out of pure love for the craft. This scene by Si-Eung. I think to understand why these are impressive, you have to understand how they are made. A block of wood is carved by hand by the artist, filled with ink, then pressed down on a canvas to print it. This is done for every single color. These are not brushstrokes, they are carvings. So of course they use as little colors as possible. Of course the beaks of the birds is the same color as the dirt. Of course the limited palette creates a beautiful harmony. I sometimes attempt to reach a similar color structure with my own pixel art works, and there is something so special about being able to convey so much with so little. In this area, North Korean artists excel. Snow scene of Tabak Sol Guard Post, artist unknown. I mean, just look at it. The color, the texture, the subject matter. This is peak North Korean art. Maybe the reason I love it so much is due to its resemblance to certain Evangelion scenes of high military contrasted with a gorgeous landscape. Hwang In-jae. The old master has a distinct style of expressive hatching. Lines fly everywhere, but he also has an affinity for slice of life paintings. He knows when to add extensive detail and when to lay back to let his line work shine through. The preface of Printed in North Korea has a small story, one which I believe everyone must hear. Here it is, from the perspective of Nicholas Bonner. In 2004, I was asked to co-curate the 6th Asia Pacific Art Triennale in Australia that for the first time would include work from North Korea. The artist who stood out was Hwang In-jae, a small man, 61 years old, with white hair and an unassuming demeanor that gave no clue to his artistic talent. Over the years, he and I discussed subjects ranging from French Impressionists, whose work he admired at university, to abstract work that he simply failed to engage with. Hwang In-jae and the other 4 artists were invited to the opening of the Biennale in December 2009, which for most of them would have been their first trip outside the DPRK. Hwang In-jae was so happy to be involved in North Korea's first truly international exposition. Sadly, he and the other artists did not attend the 2009 opening to see their works on display. They were denied entry by the Australian government on the grounds that they were artists from art studios associated with propaganda aimed at glorifying and supporting the North Korean regime. It appears politics is always part of the agenda. Wang and Jay's dream of visiting are no longer possible. He died a few years ago.
That's all of them. Okay, that's it. Done. Okay, bye. I made this video quite fast, like 48 hours fast. That's not a joke. And I do worry I've left out an extremely worthwhile channel. Maybe a few. If you know of a YouTuber deserving of more views and more love, leave it in the comments and I'll check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and thanks so much for watching. Bye.